We're going to talk social media again, but I personally can never get enough of talking social media because there's so many questions that I have, and I hope that you guys have some questions. I'm hoping to be able to answer some of them, so Michael has graciously agreed to field questions for me and filter them into this chat box over here. So if you guys have questions as we're talking up here, if you could just write them down and use the hashtag. You can use Twitter or Facebook or whatever. As long as it has the hashtag, we'll be able to find it. So you can also post it in the iMinistry chat room. So this is Jason Caston, and you guys met Nils earlier, so we've already heard about you, Nils. So Jason, why don't you tell us about you?
Is it on? Can you hear me? Okay. I'm the one of the on the social media team at TD Jakes Ministries, on the web team, mobile. Kind of a jack of all trades for a lot of leading the new technologies at the ministry. So this is what I get to do every day.
He's also author of the iChurch Method, 1 and 2, which are fantastic reads.
Yeah,
so. His book is like this thick.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If we stacked the books together, that would not be a good thing, probably. But so if you guys could talk to us a little bit about why you're passionate about social media. I mean, what is it? I know you kind of already touched on that a little bit, Nils, but just to recap just for a second and tell us what drew you to it and why you're passionate about using it for ministry.
Yeah, for me, 1.2 billion active users. From an evangelism standpoint, the world has never been so connected,
right.
And that the evangelism opportunity is there. But I think not just that, but the fellowship, the discipleship, the connectivity that exists online on a global scale, it's just mind blowing. And so the ministry opportunity that exists because of Facebook specifically just gets me so excited.
How about you?
I think kind of twofold for me. First and foremost, I met my wife online. So
awesome.
We've been married almost about 9 years. So social media for me has been not only something that I've been able to do as a career, but also it's pretty much how my family got started.
That's awesome.
So when you look at it like that, it's just something that's part of our family structure. Secondly, when I look at social media for ministry, I look at a way, again, Neil's talking about, with Facebook, 1.2 billion, Twitter's, 500 million, and, YouTube, like 600 million, stuff like that. What we're seeing is a digital missionary field that we're able to utilize and reach out for a fraction of the cost of what traditional missionaries have to pay to go. And it's even, in these times, in a safer environment where we can reach people from behind our mobile devices or laptops and desktops, but be able to reach the world and reach these millions and billions of people that are online and even more that are getting online daily.
Yeah, social evangelism for sure. So I know that every church that's represented here is probably at a different place in how they're using social media, what level their staff uses it, what level their staff doesn't use it. So if there were one thing that you guys could tell people from wherever they're at, what is the one must that you've got to do as far as social media for your ministry?
The one must, because we got like 4 key things that we do, but I'll say the most important thing is consistency. So with our social media strategy, we make sure that no matter what's going on, you're always hearing from the ministry, whether it is inspiration or information, or education. We're trying to make sure you're consistently hearing from the ministry on whatever network that you want to subscribe to. So people always think Facebook and Twitter. And if your ministry does that well, then start there. But we look at a variety of networks social networks that people want to connect with the ministry with. And so therefore we make sure there's a consistent flow of information on that network and they're able to connect to the ministry, on whatever they choose.
So define consistency. If I post once a week, is that enough?
Well, consistency means looking at how often people want to connect with you. For us, consistency means three times a day. For Facebook, maybe twice a day. Google Plus, twice a day. Twitter, consistency could mean 2 to 4 times a day. YouTube could be once a week. Pinterest, 1 photo or video a week. That's what consistency means. So it's looking at what your church, the content that your church has, how quickly are you able to get that out? How much do you have? and then making sure as quickly as you're able to get it out that people are able to interact with it. So it's kind of looking more so of, what your staff can do and then how much content you have to put out.
Okay, so another follow-up question. I'm going to get to you. So when you're talking about consistency of posting on various platforms, social media-wise, can you reuse the same content?
Now, I think the gentleman from Facebook was talking about that earlier. What we do is we do reuse content, and here's the reason why. We tried an experiment. And again, we don't have the perfect way, but a lot of things we do find by trial and error. And just learning. What we did was we were putting out our daily devotionals at the time we thought we were looking at at Facebook and the internet, which was about 8 a.m., 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. What we found was if we pushed the same daily devotional out back out again at about 9, 10 p.m., our international audience was consuming it, and so we were getting just as high engagement in the late evening hours as we were in our morning hours. And so we, in the midst of us not thinking about our international audience and the fact that social media is worldwide, we didn't realize that people are surfing at different times and not everyone is on at the time we're on. And so specifically 9 to 5 when we're at work, when we're in that mode of let's, basically do this as our jobs. And so that's the reason we push out content, and duplicate content in that manner.
And we do the same thing, and with the theory that if 15% of your audience sees it, if you post it at 6 a.m., what's the chances that if you post it maybe tomorrow at 6 p.m., that the same 15%, you're maybe looking at a 1% overlap at most, that are going to see it again and probably not be that annoyed that it showed up again in their newsfeed. So if you really want to get that information out, reposting some things, or even something from 3 months ago that has value, that's kind of a timeless content piece. Mm-hmm.
And so do you try to take, say, I don't know, one inspirational post that may be more than 140 characters, use the same thing on Twitter but shorten the amount of characters in it so that it fits, or is it something completely different for Twitter? Because I know the audiences are very different depending on the social media platform that you're on.
I think it depends on the content and if it works on Twitter. There are things like a news update that might work across the board on Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus that you can just share across the board. Some things really don't work on Twitter that work on, and vice versa. So I think it depends, but definitely if it's valuable across the board, use it across the board.
Good.
That's my thought.
Yeah, that's our approach as well. We try, if we can, we're not going to try and take a long, 285 character post and cut it up and put it on Twitter and say, in order to read the rest, you got to go to Facebook. We're not trying to mix platforms like that. But if the way it's stated, we can somehow get the same point across in a shorter context, then we will shorten it up and do stuff like that.
Good. So I just want to take a quick poll of the room. How many of you guys, your ministries already use at least one social media outlet? Pretty much everybody. How about 2? 3? 4? You're on every single one of them? So the hands keep going down, but there's a lot of people in the room who are already on multiple platforms. So
Facebook, Google Plus, I'm curious.
Okay,
How
Facebook.
many are,
Raise your hand. Almost everybody. Google Plus.
Oh, okay. That's more than I would have thought.
Twitter. Pinterest. 4. Instagram. YouTube. That one kicked my rear end. We found out that our church did not have a YouTube account. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Nobody knew that we didn't have one. What's going on? How about Snapchat? Nobody?
Our middle schoolers use it.
I think it's an everybody thing.
It's an everybody thing. Yeah. It's what we were talking about earlier. I think Seth was asking Niels about where kids are going as they're migrating away from the adult use Facebook and stuff like that. They're moving over to stuff like Snapchat where they can send pictures with a set time frame on them, and they think they disappear, but they don't. Nothing disappears from the internet. And then they're moving over to stuff like Vine, and which is 6 seconds videos, and Feed, which is another network that has a variety of different ways you can share multimedia content. But they're moving towards that where the adults are not there, because no kids want to be where the adults are at. Right. So adults ruin Facebook, according to the kids.
Yes. So I would be curious to know. if a church was wanting to get started, I haven't looked at the online questions. There may be some already, but if a church was wanting to get started, what platform would you suggest they start on?
I think it's easy, Facebook, and create a Facebook page and just start. And I mean, I think it's, to me, that's easy. I'm curious, Jason, your perspective.
I used to say Facebook all the time because just 1.2 billion, that's your best field. But I ran across quite a few churches that were doing Twitter very well. So I changed my answer. Well, they made me change my answer to whatever network your audience, that you poll your audience and they're on. When you look at that, because you got to look at where your audience is, what they're already utilizing, and then find out what your staff is able to use. Because if everybody in your staff is, Twitter fanatics, and you say we're going to roll out Facebook, well then the people on your staff are not equipped to utilize it, and then your audience may not even be there. So I originally thought Facebook until I was, the people who I talked to told me I was wrong. So and that's what it was.
That's good.
So what if you find out that the people on your staff, especially senior leadership, aren't anywhere?
Oh, well, then you got to educate them. And for that, I would say to start off, I would actually look at trying to do Facebook and Twitter, because Twitter is easier in terms of just the learning curve and what you're posting and information like that. Facebook, though, is just that, again, the reach is so much farther. When you look at what countries Facebook is #1 as a network in, I mean, it's like 80% of the countries of the world. Mm-hmm. So with that type of stuff, and then outside of, I believe it's mainly like outside of China and Russia and a couple other countries, Facebook is dominating the social network space. So that's why I would say, as best you can, try and utilize that.
I feel like Twitter works well for pastors individually,
absolutely.
And then Facebook works well organizationally, where a lot of pastors are hesitant to have a personal Facebook profile that they're using much, because people are always sending them long messages that they feel like they need to respond to. Where on Twitter, the longest message they're going to get is 140 characters, so they feel like they feel like it's manageable from an engagement standpoint. If they're really going to keep up with it. So individually, I don't see too many organizations using Twitter real effectively, where Facebook just has a lot more opportunity for the content you're sharing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Really good point. So I'm going to take a question from online. What is the difference between a church Twitter or Facebook profile and that of its leaders?
Church Twitter and Facebook profile.
So like I'm assuming what it means is Christ Fellowship has a Facebook page, Bruce Miller has a Facebook page. What should the difference, how different should they be? How different should they look?
I think you have an organizational voice and an individual voice. So even our senior pastor has a Facebook page, and then we have our church Facebook page. He shares personal announcements like, this is what I'm preaching on this weekend, or here's I'm cheering for this football team. Where organizationally we say our women's ministry is doing this event, or this is a quote from the sermon this weekend. So we have an organizational voice that is different from our senior pastor's voice, less personal or more organizational. That's kind of how we differentiate the two. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
And then one more question. How can members use social media to incorporate with small groups? That's a good one.
Oh, that's good. Definitely, from what I've heard, again, at this conference, and we've reiterated with the small groups, the Facebook groups are really good, and that's a good tool to utilize. I think I heard earlier maybe a couple of Google Plus groups, Google Plus communities, which what they would be. So Google Plus would be a good one in utilizing that, especially. And then also, too, if anyone's familiar with Google Hangouts on Air, that's a good way to interact. And that's actually that. And the thing that I like about Google Plus Hangouts in terms of the social media space is it's not limited when you're having this video chat with the multiple people. It's not limited to laptop or desktop. And no matter what device you're picking up, you're able to communicate with people. So that's taken away, the limitations of I'm sitting at my desk and communicating. It's just no matter where I am, I'm able to communicate.
Yeah, my group doesn't like it when I do it in the car. Like, Jan, stop driving and doing a hangout. I'm not watching you. Just look up
Are you holding your phone out here when you're doing that? Or?
No, I put it in the drink holder.
Okay.
And so they get this really great shot this way. Not pretty.
See, there we go. Always
attractive.
Connected. That's what matters.
Let's see. How does a church use social media with multiple users without conveying the wrong message? I'm assuming what that's talking about is one church account, but you have multiple people posting.
Oh, yeah.
So what we do is we schedule out all of our posts, so you can time post on Facebook. You see the little clock on there. So we schedule out posts a week in advance, and we have multiple people that have the ability to manage that, but one primary point of contact. So if someone else is going to change that, they'll contact him and say, can we squeeze this post in at this time? Or this is a really time-sensitive post. Can I unschedule this post that's coming up in 30 minutes and go ahead and post at this time? So we have one primary point of contact, yet other people for an emergency standpoint. If we need to jump a post in immediately, we have that ability. But scheduling posts in advance is huge from a content creation standpoint, because we're really putting a lot of time and intentionality. Because a lot of times I think, or previously, we would just be like, oh, I haven't posted in a day. I need to throw something up there just to keep consistency. Yet the quality really decreases.
Now, what tool do you use for your schedule?
We do it right in Facebook. We found that we used to use Hootsuite, and it downgraded the post. So we got fewer impressions when we did it within Hootsuite. Posting and scheduling right within Facebook increased the impression rate.
So I'm just curious, do you know if that's true of Twitter as well? If you were to use Hootsuite to schedule on Twitter,
the way Twitter works, it goes directly into the feeds. There is no the prioritizing on Twitter currently.
Yeah, with the Facebook news feed, and I think the gentleman was talking about it earlier, with their edge rank, they obviously sometimes originally it was if you posted right in Facebook, then that was where you got priority over third-party postings like Hootsuite. Then they changed it to where the third-party tools didn't matter, and then they went back. Of course, as soon as Facebook went public, as the guy said earlier, they became a for-profit business. They were less social and more about money making, which is why they only give you access to 15%. Oh, let me answer your question though. What we use a system of checks and balances, which is we still use Hootsuite, and we give people access. You have access to certain networks because we have about 10 social networks between Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus, and other ones, and we give so that you're able to, if you post something, then depending on what level of access we give you, it might have to be approved by somebody before it goes up. And so that's how we kind of look. And we have basically two people, two gatekeepers, myself and my manager, who are the ones who approve what goes up live and stuff like that.
That's good. So what would you consider your biggest social media win?
Oh, I got a good one. Well, first and foremost, I got two that I want to talk about that are really amazing. We'll talk about the number side, and then we'll talk about the ministry side. So first, let's the ministry side. Actually, as the ministry was learning to adopt social media, Bishop Jakes came on and he started a prayer chain. And he said, I'm going to start a prayer chain on Facebook, and I'm going to start. And he started praying, and he said, you add your prayer chain to this. And that went viral, where a lot of people were praying. And I mean, just it was, first we saw a couple thousand people praying, then we just saw like hundreds of thousands of people were participating in this prayer chain. So what we saw from that social media, just from something that he just wanted to start, was the impact of real-time ministry. And so, and you're seeing people who first and foremost, took a couple people to realize, oh, am I really talking to Bishop Jakes, and so on and so forth. So we say the veil came down. They're actually talking to him, and they're able to pray with him, and he's praying for them. So as they talked about, could you pray for this? And they prayed for him, he prayed for them, and it just was ongoing for about 4 or 5 hours. Wow. So that right there, that real-time ministry just took social media to another level for us to see it happen like that. Secondly, when I got to the ministry in January of 2010, we weren't really utilizing social media. I mean, it was still a large ministry, still had the presence that it had on TV and, around the world, but we weren't using social media in that manner, and not very well. So, I was able to say, okay, let's start a Facebook fan page, let's try and utilize Twitter a little more, and we hadn't jumped on the other networks yet. But about October 2012, and then a little later on in December, our Twitter, but both of those accounts hit, 1 million users, 1 million followers. And so to see something, and that changed the dynamic of how we do ministry, because social media is now a ministry tool, and it's a marketing tool. So that just, to see something that they weren't using before rewrite the way we do ministry was just a great win for us all around, and the people that we've reached all around the world. I mean, it's immeasurable.
Yeah, that's great. What about you, Nils?
I think I can tell you much more failures than I can wins.
That's your next question.
But there is there's a situation recently that happened. A lady who had recently moved to San Antonio, really broken, and she got on, and I just happened to be on Saturday night checking our Facebook messages on our Facebook page, and she said, I need to go to your church this weekend, but all I have are my biker bar clothes, and and I have tattoos. What am I going to be welcome at your church? And I was able to encourage, really talk her into coming this weekend. You're going to be more than welcome, and come find me. I'm going to, I'll be waiting at this booth. I want to welcome you personally to church, and to see her come, so she was uncomfortable to come. I was able to connect with her immediately before she was able to make it. We were able to be friends on Facebook and have a connection. She knew what I looked like. I knew what she looked like then before she was there, and then we connected that Sunday, and then now she's a very involved member of our church. And so seeing that digital relationship turn into a physical, and watching her life transformation, and just feeling welcome where she wouldn't have probably just showed up if we weren't able to make that personal social connection through social media first.
That's awesome. So next question, biggest fail.
I've got two that come to mind. When we first started, we had no organizational systems. It was just I had 5 people had access, and they posted whenever. And I remember one guy posted without, and we had no systems of approval. And we were going through Dave Ramsey together, and he posted. I don't know how much he said it wrong, but it came out. How much money do you have in savings? Basically asking everyone how much money do you have in the bank right now. It came across terrible, and so everyone just kind of said, "It's none of your business, CBC," and we got so many unfollows, in about a 1 hour period. And the truth is, it was maybe the most highly engaged post we've ever had, because everyone was commenting and responding and just lit up about CBC. And I was out where I couldn't do anything, and I had to call somebody else to take it down. That was a mess. And then the other, our senior pastor, kind of a similar situation where he was posting on Facebook. We don't have any filters there either. And it was during the election, which was sensitive time anyway. He posted that he was going to be voting Republican, and he said something, and I don't remember exactly, but it sounded as if I think you should too. But he didn't say that. But it came across that way. News station we took it down within 15 minutes. News station had it copied and pasted and put it on the news that night, and it was just a mess from and so you just never know. And once you put it on the internet, even if you take it down, it's still
it's like Seth's streaking post yesterday.
So we've learned some hard lessons.
Let's see. With me, we had quite a few failures. I'll just pick one that was recent. Hootsuite got hacked. So I was posting something. I was scheduling for the week. It was Sunday evening. I'm scheduling out some posts for the week, devotionals, all this stuff. And for some reason, my Hootsuite just stalled. So I'm like, oh, man, what's going on with it? I didn't think nothing of it. And then, so I continued posting, and about 5 minutes later, my manager called me, and he was like, what's going on? What's wrong? You got hacked. And I'm like, no, my accounts are fine. So I go look, and on every account that's connected to Hootsuite, including my accounts, the church accounts, any other ministry I've ever worked with, that I'm working with currently, they all had this one thing talking about, it was something like, this is good fruit, and then it had a link. So obviously people are saying fruit, they think it's a spiritual post. It was not. It was a link to more spam. So it's just like, it was only up for like 2 minutes, but some people were clicking on it, and then I know that their stuff got hacked and stuff like that. But the funny thing about it was some people were just commenting on it, and they were like, yeah, it is good fruit. Great post. It is. It's great fruit, thank God. And I'm like, no, it's not. This is spam. But my boss had called me and told me everything. So, and I had to go through to every account, every individual account, delete that post, log out of Hootsuite, and I reached out to them and told them what happened, and basically had to disconnect all the accounts in my Hootsuite, which is about 40 to 50, and then reconnect them all individually. And then Hootsuite acknowledged about a couple hours later, I think the next day, that a lot of them got hacked.
Yes, I remember that. We stopped using Hootsuite in favor of Facebook scheduling for the time being, and so we were thankful that we were not active on Hootsuite that day. Okay, so here's some other good questions. What do you think of live tweeting during sermons, good or bad?
I think it's awesome. Our congregation is not a big Twitter congregation, so we don't do it actively. We'll do it on occasion. But I think it's awesome. I think it's highly engaging. I think you've got, especially a younger generation coming up, that they're more engaged by being on social media during a worship experience. So I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, we encourage tweeting and Instagramming during the service. There actually is a time where I think we do I don't know what it's called, Insta Meet, Insta Tweet, something like that. But we encourage it because it's kind of twofold. When you look at the newer generations, they're sharing their faith in the manner they have. Traditionally, you hear the message, you would go tell somebody afterwards, pastor preached a message and he was talking just for you. You should have heard it, stuff like that. But now it's like real time. I can tell you exactly what's going on. And even on our eChurch page, we put a Twitter feed right next to it, so as people are watching, they can automatically tweet from it as something moves them. So we definitely encourage that, to let people know, continue to share.
Somebody on my team write that down. Insta meet, Insta tweet. That was awesome. What do you think of? I already asked that. How do you keep your members educated on which ministries use which social media tools?
I think we've got so much all over the board. We've talked about creating, a hierarchy system deal. It's changing so much so fast that we almost can't. I mean, we control maybe how you design icons and kind of we guard our brand in some ways, but we can't. We don't have an organizational structure to it, and so we'll promote, hey, here's a link to the middle school page, or here's a link to a women's ministry page on occasion, if it's new or fresh, or if there's something unique there. But we don't have a system that really where it all lives. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's what we're working on now. Originally, we were funneling everything through one Facebook fan page and one Twitter account, and then we started branching stuff out. And so now with our redesign of our website we're building a resource page that talks about all our ways to connect with us in social media channels.
Oh, that's a great idea. So let me go back here for a second. Do you have concerns of watering down your organization when you use Facebook groups, Google groups, Skype, etc.?
Absolutely. I think the more, and that's kind of where we're at, is we've started doing so many things, and I think, Google Hangouts are cool. Oh, these Skype, new tool on Skype is cool, and so I want to play with it, so I'll start something using it, yet we get so spread out, and so even educating our members of, we want you to use this tool and this tool and this tool. If we could simplify, and that's why we've really clung to Facebook, unless it's a necessity that Facebook really can't connect with beyond that. So we do feel like Twitter and YouTube have a lot of value for us, but outside of that, we're not using a whole lot of other networks and really trying to simplify as much as possible unless we really need to.
We haven't stepped into the groups just yet, so we haven't addressed that one yet.
Let's see. One more. How do you compare engagement versus followers?
I think followers are useless if they're not engaged. I say useless. I mean, they're not. There's no point in having. So say you have a ton of people that like your page, but they're not engaging with it. They're not hearing what you're saying, or you're not hearing what they're saying. It's pointless them being on the page. So really, the key to all social media, or you could have 1 million Twitter followers, but if they're not reading your content or responding to it, it doesn't matter what that number is of followers or likes. In my mind, it's the engaged users with your content. So
talking about Facebook, where this is concerned, you have 6,000 people who like your page, and it says 575 are talking about this. Those would be people that are engaged with your content. What is a good ratio? I mean, what's the percentage that you're looking for to say this is a successful page?
You're looking at anywhere between, they said the average was 15%. The high end is about 30% that I've seen, and that's usually with highly cause-related pages. I think we're about between 25 and 30. And then a lot of church pages I've seen are usually higher than the average because people resonate to the content more than you see like corporate pages where you see Coca-Cola has, 45 million, but they only have 1 million talking about it, stuff like that. So I think that pretty much a good number to look for starting off is to try and hit that average of 15%, and then from there you're trying to build up to get around 20 to 25 is where you can go.
And I think it can be dangerous to sometimes compare yourself to the norm or to other churches. If you compare yourself to yourself and just say, I want to engage more people than I did last week. I want to engage more people than I did last month. When you compare to yourself, it's less overwhelming or intimidating. And so really just get better. And I think that's the bottom line.
Green arrow good, red arrow bad.
Right.
Right. Okay, so I was forwarded a link by Alan yesterday, day before, I don't remember, of a talk that Gary Vanderchuck did on social media. I highly recommend it if you're okay with a little bit of profanity. But he had a quote that I actually wrote down, and it says, if you're not telling stories on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram, you are borderline not relevant to what is going to happen within the next 24 months. So how do you, Eric was talking a lot about storytelling. And we as churches want to be relevant to the people that are reading our content. How do you engage what is a successful story? I mean, how do you find those nuggets that people are going to engage with so you can stay relevant to them?
I think for us, first and foremost, we're looking at two things. Again, we're telling our story, and then we're looking at how we can tell it in a visual manner. Because you think Eric also said photos were the most engaging, I think he said, and videos are on their way. So we're looking at if you look at a typical week of content that's developed at our ministry, what best will tell this story? And then we're looking for those key photos, probably making them into memes, putting a little text on them and distributing them out to various networks. But since social media is so visual, it's easier for us to tell our story in a visual manner using photos, video clips, and stuff like that. So that's where we basically analyze all the content we get in a typical week or a typical month and look at it and say, how can we best tell this story in some type of manner that people will get a feel for our ministry through whatever visual network that they connect with us on.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think storytelling is nothing new. I mean, Jesus was the greatest storyteller, and then we see Disney for 100 years or however long that they've been around. I mean, the stories they've been telling before social media. Social media is just a new platform to tell our stories. And I think as a church, we have so many stories. Every individual in our congregation has a story to tell. Right. We have stories to communicate. I think from a communication standpoint, we get so caught up in telling what's coming that we forget to tell what God has done leading up to what's brought us to this. And then I think we're telling a story about where we're going. You paint a picture, and so you're communicating that in everything. You're communicating who you are. You're communicating what God's done, and you're communicating where God's leading our congregation. So it's an ongoing story that we're telling through social media.
Preach it. I thank you guys for being up here and sharing your wisdom with us. I know there's probably tons more questions on this subject, and so if you have more questions, I think there's a room back there that has the whiteboard that you can write them on, and tomorrow there's going to be an open Q&A, and we're going to take a lot of those questions from those boards and those rooms back there. So I would suggest that you go back there or grab them in a break and just, get a little FaceTime. So thank you both. Appreciate you.